worship. My name is Crystal. I have my friends up here, Taylor and Lizzie, Dave, Clay, Joe, Brandon, and Kelly. And we are your worship team this morning, and we're just glad that you're here. My friend Cheryl is going to offer you a word of welcome this morning.
Yeah, good morning and welcome. I'm Cheryl Gallerno, the pastor of children and families, and I saw some new faces to me out there, so I'm glad to meet all of y'all today. I'm welcoming you to church. You picked a great day to come and be here and open with all of us. I want to remind you as you're here, scan that QR code and fill out your connection card, and we would just love to know who was here so that we can reach out to you sometime and say hello back to you. And now I invite you to stand up and maybe meet somebody else. Go say hello to your friends around you. Hello, y'all.
If you're comfortable, and we will begin worship together this morning.
Ooh, ooh, I can see the clouds rolling. I can feel the winds, they try to shake me, but I will not be moved. My feet are on the rock.
Feel the waters rise. I can hear the howling like that haunt me. Fear won't hold me now.
My feet are on the rock.
Ooh. When I feel my hope about to break, I will cling to your unchanging grace. Let the waters come and the earth give way. Dancing in the rain. My feet are on the rock. Ooh, ooh. I can see the morning light. I can feel the joy on the horizon. Here my faith is found. I stand on solid ground. When I feel my hope about to rain, I will cling to your unchanging grace. Let the waters come and the earth give way. I'll be dancing in the rain. My feet are on the rock. Ooh, ooh.
On Christ, a solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. Stomp your feet and clap your hands. Our feet are on the rock. On Christ, a solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. Stomp your feet and clap your hands. Our feet are on the rock. On Christ, a solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. So stomp your feet and clap your hands. Our feet are on the rock.
When I feel my
Hope about to break, I will cling to your unchanging grace. Let the waters come and the earth give way.
friends who are going to join us up here to lead us in our liturgy this morning. And as they make their way up here, just want to share with you that this is something that we say together every Sunday morning to center ourselves on what we believe about God, what we believe about each other and ourselves. And you all will have a line that you will say in this, and that line is "All are welcome here."
We come together to seek God, trusting that God is seeking us with open arms.
No matter our doubts or questions, where we come from or who we love, even in the chaotic seasons of life, we are loved by God.
All are welcome here. We believe that everyone is a child of God. Every age, race, gender, identity, ability, and creed. All are beautifully and colorfully made and of sacred worth.
All are welcome here. We affirm that God is a good God who lifts up the oppressed, who loves the vulnerable, and open to all. So we choose to have open hearts, open minds, and open arms, and open doors to God and to each other. All are welcome.
Thank you, friends. We genuinely believe in that message that all are welcome here. Whoever you are, whatever your story or your identity may be, wherever you are on life's journey, God's love is here for you, and so are we. And we invite you to remain standing as you're comfortable, and we'll continue to sing together.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free, there is a cross that tells the story of a love open for me.
Oh, my back up beneath the waters. I'm no longer ashamed of myself anymore. Oh, and should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning? Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding what power set me free, there is a grave that holds nobody, and now that power lives in me. And I can see the light in the darkness, shining hope that love will win. I can hear the song in the heavens as the space between wears thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us.
All right, friends, y'all can be seated. We're about to hear a scripture reading from the book of Daniel as we get ready for today's kind of familiar story.
Today's scripture comes from Daniel chapter 3, verses 8 through 18. Accordingly, at this time, certain Chaldeans came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, drum, and entire musical ensemble shall fall down and worship the golden statue. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men pay no heed to you, O king. They do not serve your gods, and they do not worship the golden statue that you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought in, so they brought those men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods, and you do not worship the golden statue that I have set up? Now, if you are ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, drum, and entire musical ensemble, you should fall down and worship the statue that I have made. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to present a defense to you in this matter. If our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the furnace of blazing fire and out of your hand, O king, let him deliver us. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods, and we will not worship the golden statue that you have set up." The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
So if you grew up in church, you most likely have heard this story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And somewhere in the world, I hope some woman that had 3 triplet boys named her children these names, because they're awesome names. And if you grew up in the 90s, or maybe if you raised kids in the 90s, most likely you might have watched the VeggieTales version of this one. It's one of the most famous ones. We really tried to figure out how Taylor could sing the bunny song, because he's got the perfect voice for it, but it just couldn't quite fit it in. But the VeggieTales is a very wonderful version. I think they stand true. I don't think they're problematic. It's been a long time since I've watched a full episode, although I did watch clips of it this week for my sermon research, of course. So luckily no one walked into my office while I was listening to VeggieTale songs, because I went down a rabbit trail with them. But if you haven't read this story and that was your first kind of exposure, you think, wow, King Nebuchadnezzar kind of seems like he might need to calm down a little bit because he wants to throw people into a furnace. And as we go through this story, I had to ask myself, because it is one that we've read so many times, most likely, or at least bits and pieces of it, what is it trying to teach us? What things can we glean from it? And as I dug into this story, there were kind of several lessons. But to begin, the book of Daniel, if you don't know, it takes place after the first attack in Jerusalem by the Babylonians. It's this first wave of exiles, if you will. It happens, we get to where we are now, happens in 2 Kings 24, if you want to read more about it. When you hear the word Chaldeans, it's also the same kind of as Babylonians. So depending on your translation, sometimes I might say Babylonians. But Chaldeans are Babylonians, but they're kind of a ruling higher class, if you will. But that's why they sometimes are interchanged. But as I read through this story, I thought, okay, there's really 3 kind of characters or 3 different groups that I want to talk about. So today's a little bit different. I'm kind of going to go through each 3 group and then go back and kind of look at them. But I want to start with King Nebuchadnezzar. And I know we read a little bit about him, but I want to read a little bit more about him. So we're going to go back to the very beginning of chapter 3 in verse 1, and this is what it says. King Nebuchadnezzar made a golden statue whose height was 60 cubits and whose width was 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent for the satraps, the prefects, which is not just in Harry Potter, guys. It's right here in the Bible. And the governors, 3 people liked that joke. Okay. The counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to assemble and come to the dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, and the counselors, and the treasurers of justice, and the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces assembled for the dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. When they were standing before the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had set up, the herald proclaimed aloud, "You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, drum, and entire musical ensemble, you are to fall down and worship the golden statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. Therefore, as soon as all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, drum, and entire musical ensemble, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshiped the golden statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So with this statue, many people automatically assume that the statue must be of King Nebuchadnezzar himself. But there's no really concrete evidence that that's what it was. We don't know exactly what it was, but we do know it was very large. 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, in modern terms, would be 90 feet high and 9 feet wide, which means it is a lot of gold. And so it was making this kind of statement. And as I was reading it, you may have noticed that he sent near and far and at every level to come bow at this. They were commanded, and they had no choice but to come and see and play homage and follow exactly King Nebuchadnezzar's orders. And he's very specific about what happens and what the people have to listen to. Now, the naming of all the instruments, you think that's kind of interesting. They name all these different instruments. And what commentaries say is that some of those instruments are played by those that are poor, and some are very, very nice, only like the highest royal kind of play them. So it's his way of establishing that no matter who you are, where you come from, what language, whatever, you are all expected to bow down and follow. And the consequence, if you don't do that, is to be thrown into a fire. So it seems very extreme, and it begs the question, did the king really do stuff like this? And I hate to break some news, but in the Bible, there are some horrific things that actually really did happen. And you think, okay, what? Like, that's very troublesome. I don't know what to do with that. And as I read it in some commentary, I really liked this point that a writer said. It said, whether Nebuchadnezzar ever erected such a statue is totally beside the point. The point was that he could. He could amass that much gold. He could assemble the leaders. He could demand obedience and threaten horrible punishment. And that is a plausibility, that is politically plausibility that the stories of Daniel are based on. So whether he did it or not doesn't really matter. The fact that he is constantly flexing his power is troublesome. With these outlandish requests and demands, these threats to these people, it's not okay. It makes living in that kind of environment not easy. The stress and anxiety that the people were enduring all the time was not good. You never knew what you were going to awake to, what command or demand or decree would be sent out, and what you would have to follow. It was always changing. And so you were living on the edge. You were living in fear. And for these people that are trying to live life, they're constantly trying to listen for that sound, because God forbid if they don't listen and bow down, if they miss the sound, they'll be accused of not obeying and be thrown into a fire. King Nebuchadnezzar knew his power. He knew his sense of control, and he wanted to remind the people as often as he could that he had it and he was not afraid to use it no matter what. I'll have more to say about King Nebuchadnezzar in a little bit, but let's move on to the second group I want to look at. The Chaldeans, the ones that come forth to tell King Nebuchadnezzar about the Jews that are disobeying. And they kind of butter him up, and it reminds me of the decree, if you've read the book of Esther, how Haman tries to tell the king, hey, remember what you did, and now they're disobeying, and you should kill all the Jews. It's the same kind of pattern of wanting to be noticed, to have privilege, to gain power, and all of that. Now we read, or what Taylor read, we know that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel for that matter, already have been appointed. They already have this level of authority. So you might think maybe the Chaldeans were, I don't know, maybe a little jealous of their power. And so they do whatever they can to make sure that they are viewed as enemies or a threat to king's power. In chapter 2, if you know this story, Daniel refuses to eat food. And at first, the king is mad. And then eventually he says, you know what? Truly your God is God of gods and Lord of kings. And so in chapter 2, you think, oh, maybe King Nebuchadnezzar is actually, he's okay. He's not a bad guy. But then in chapter 3, we know that his fury, his anger is not okay. So these Chaldeans know what kind of king and what kind of leader they have. He's erratic. He makes these ridiculous requests and demands, and he's not afraid to threaten his people. So the Chaldeans, they know what to do, and they do this fear-mongering, if you will. They point to these three guys and say, look at them. Look how they're disobeying your power, king. And so the king says, oh, you know what? You're right. Even though what these Jewish guys are doing is not harming anyone, the king cannot deal with someone not obeying his power. And I know this story seems very weird. We totally cannot relate to this in 2026 whatsoever. Okay, so now let's talk about the three main guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I love their story. I love their act of resistance. Is incredibly inspiring. Their response, that's what is really so impressive to me, is that they seem to be so calm. They say, we have no need to present a defense to you. They're very calm. They don't lash out. And they say, you know what? If our God chooses to save us, great. But even if not, we're still not going to follow you. Like they are saying this to this very known, erratic, not well king. And they're saying, you know what? It doesn't matter. We're not going to follow you. It's such a powerful statement of faith and trust. And what I've seen as we've taught this story over and over again, especially to children, is that we've taught in a way, if you are obedient and you just trust everything will be okay. And I don't think that's exactly what we should be teaching. I think this story points to even if things go wrong, we should still trust that God is still worth trusting and believing, that God may not be able to protect you from everything, but God will be with you. And that God did not cause this kind of stuff to happen, but this is what happens when there's free will and power goes unchecked. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shows that sometimes we have to be willing to do the hard thing, to risk. That maybe there are consequences, that maybe we could get hurt. Their act of bravery, despite the very real possibility of pain and suffering, is an incredible act of trust and faith. They didn't know if God was going to save them, but they still chose, we're still going to do it. We're still going to follow through. They knew that it was worth standing up to this leader, to this unchecked power, and saying, no, you don't have control, and we will not stand for this kind of behavior. So let's see what happens. I know I kind of gave away the ending, but here it is. Then Nebuchadnezzar was so filled with rage against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face was distorted. He ordered the furnace heated up 7 times more than was customary, which we've discussed. How do you heat up a fire more? I don't know, 7 times. I don't know how that works. And so then he ordered some of his strongest guards in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and to throw them into the furnace of blazing fire. So the men were bound, still wearing their tunics, their trousers, their hats, and their other garments, and they were thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. Because the king's command was urgent and the furnace was so overheated, the raging flames killed the men who lifted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But the 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the furnace of blazing fire. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up quickly. He said to his counselors, "Was it not 3 men that we threw bound into the fire?" They answered the king, "True, O king." He replied, "But I see 4 men unbound walking in the middle of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the 4th has the appearance of a god." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the door of the furnace of blazing fire and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the body of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their tunics were not harmed, and not even the smell of fire came from them. Nebuchadnezzar said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him." They disobeyed the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God. You think, oh, King Nebuchadnezzar, you got it. You're good. And then he keeps talking. "Therefore, I make a decree. Any people, nation, or language that utters blasphemy against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb and their houses laid in ruins, for there is no other God who is able to deliver in this way." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. He was so close, y'all. He almost got it. And then there's that behavior again of like the rage and the control and the power. It creeps back up. So let's go back to King Nebuchadnezzar for a little bit. What does his behavior teach us? I've already alluded to it, but when someone has that much power and constantly flaunts it and makes empty threats just for the sake to cause harm and anxiety and panic, a way to just prove themselves, they aren't a leader. They have no consideration for the well-being of those they've been tasked with leading. There's kind of erratic behavior and never knowing what you're getting, who you're working for is not okay. And I know with this kind of sermon, you all assume that I'm talking about a particular person. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of similarities of the way I see leadership going. But I will also say I've personally worked for people that throw this kind of power out. And I know many of you probably have an experience too of having to be led by someone that has this kind of behavior where just because they're in charge or they have the control or they say they'll use it and abuse it. Or maybe you know someone that has had a really horrible working situation. I think it's a reminder, King Nebuchadnezzar, this story is a reminder of what we should do when we come across power that's being played out like this. That we do rise up and say, no, we don't allow it, we try to stop it, we do all that we can. It goes back to that when we see something, we say something. And I understand it can be terrifying. There's no sugarcoating this. It is nerve-wracking. It's not easy work. And when there's different power dynamics at play or gender roles, all that kind of stuff, it's not an easy task to stand up to power, especially when it's this abusive and terrifying. But just because someone has been given power doesn't mean they can do whatever they want with it. We are called to hold people accountable, and we are called to rise up against this kind of injustice and evil. And when it comes to the Chaldeans, this point is short. If how someone is living, if it doesn't impact you or change your life or bring any harm, could you just leave them alone? I don't know, maybe. Because often that's rooted in this insecurity and jealousy. And so the Chaldean shows like, that's not what we do. We don't say, hey, have you noticed those people over there? We've talked about it before, but there's this need or this desire to always point to someone and make them the enemy or make them think that, or make others think that they are bad or they're harming when actually they're not doing anything. And then the three guys. You've probably heard this before, but the three guys, you're right, they don't get burned up. Not even their hair, their clothes, they don't even have the smell of fire. But I have to imagine they still probably felt the heat. They still felt that. Now, while the flames did not incinerate them, they no doubt felt that extreme heat, and it was not pleasant. I don't think it was comfortable. But they also were not bound. And I think that's a really interesting point. That somehow in their disobedience, they had this kind of freedom. And that's such a message for us when we are disobedient to powers of injustice, that there's this freedom in that. Even when we're in the midst of that fiery furnace, that there's still this element of being free. Even though these three guys were not harmed one bit physically, they had no scars or physical reminders, I have to imagine it was a traumatizing kind of experience. That it was hard, it was an experience that they carried with them. Even if it ended good, it was still hard and it probably changed them. We often romanticize or sanitize these stories, especially for kids, to make them okay, more digestible, to make it like, hey, if things are going to be easy as long as you trust God, and that's not necessarily true. We often can miss the real life lessons. And when we set up the story like this to say, hey, if you're just good and you obey, everything's going to be okay, I think it sets up people to fail, to walk away from faith, or to be very confused and frustrated at God. So I think the bigger question we should ask ourselves, is it worth standing up for what you believe in? Is it worth the risk? And I hope the answer would be yes. And not because there will not be damage or no pain or suffering, but because we are called to this kind of work. And as I thought about this more, there was actually a fourth group. Behind door number 4, there's this other group that I wanted to talk about. So when they are thrown into the furnace, we are told that there's these strong men, the strong army. And we don't know if they were Jewish soldiers that happened to be strong and were forced to serve this king. We don't know if they were Babylonians. We don't know anything about them. We don't know their names, but we do know that they perished. And what I think about is that they were forced to do something really horrific. And they were probably forced to do horrible things like this all the time by this tyrant kind of leader. And maybe they were bad guys. Maybe these army, they were bad guys, but we don't know that. But I think about how they were this casualty for this king who was not well. And it made me think about other groups of people. I thought about a group of people that really have no voice and really can't stand up to power at all because they have been silenced, or they've been so harmed or pushed aside, or that they are constantly living in fear. These are people all around the world that are living in this kind of fear or living lives that we can't even imagine. We also know people that are probably living like that right here in our own community. And I couldn't help but think about how so many literally have no power or any way to stand up against this kind of abuse and power. These men in the army, even though we are told they are the strongest of the bunch, it doesn't tell us how much they were abused and threatened if they did not comply. How they lived in fear every day as they were led by a king who had such extreme anger issues, a king who wore it as a badge of honor to have that kind of control and power, that he could do whatever he wanted. There are people that are up close to this kind of leadership that are harmed all the time, even when they're not the target. And then the second group, I do think of the casualties that happen, the harm that is done indirectly often, sometimes directly, but indirectly. These men should not have died in order for King Nebuchadnezzar to make a point. And often when a leader simply just says things, or maybe makes threats, or maybe when they actually follow through, there are consequences. Even just saying things, our words have power. It stirs up fear and anxiety and panic and harm, even when there's no follow through, and that is abusive. And I hurt for those who experience all of that because powers just want to show how powerful and that they can do and how they're very untouchable. I couldn't think about all the things that we have seen in the last few years when there's laws or even discussions or bills or even just cuts to things that harm people, that have direct impact on people. I think about all the people in the world who have never been a threat to us, or people in our own country who have never been a threat, but are impacted by this kind of power. Where starvation happens that doesn't need to happen, where a lack of medical care doesn't need to happen, that people are dying of preventable disease, the list goes on and on. When people have this kind of power and threat it and just do things in order to flex, and so I can harm your life in such profound, deep ways, and then they don't follow through. I just think, golly. I also think about all the ways we cut corners and then people suffer because of it. In this story, these 3 Jewish men were not an enemy, but actions were taken against them, and then other people suffered. This is why we stand up. This is why we care, because even if decisions don't directly impact us, they may eventually, but they're impacting our neighbors and people right now, today. This story reminds me when we stand up and speak out, we can't protect everyone, we can't save everyone, but the call to do it, we have to do it regardless. And I think we have to grow comfortable with doing that. I also know from this story we won't always be protected. We can't always save ourselves. And yes, this story ends really great. The 3 men aren't harmed, but that doesn't always work out in real life. So as hard and kind of as horrific as this story is, it does invite us to trust God and have faith regardless of the outcome. It reminds us that God is with us. God doesn't always protect us from harm or pain, but God does promise to never leave us. It also reminds us to think of those who will suffer even if we don't suffer. It's a radical act of faith. No matter what the outcome would be, it would not have changed what these men did. And so I'm inspired and moved and reminded that this life of faith has choices all the time, can often have consequences, and also has pain, but also has hope and comfort. So I hope that this story, rather than moving us to live a life of fear, would actually move us towards trust and courage. As I close today, I hope that we would not sugarcoat stories like this. It is a difficult and challenging story, but it's also this reminder of what this life of faith can often ask of us. And so today, I hope that we would be inspired to stand up and speak out, not only for ourselves and our beliefs, but for our fellow neighbor, and sometimes even more importantly, the stranger that we will never meet. And so thanks be to God for the heat that is felt, and maybe the faint smell of smoke that lingers in the air that reminds us to live a life of bold and trusting faith. Amen. So today is communion, and maybe you've been part of this church for a while, or you're new to this church life, but this is a meal that we share together ever so often, and it is a meal that does not belong to First United Methodist, does not belong to the United Methodist Church, that this is really the Lord's table, and that everyone belongs here, and everyone has a place here. And when I think about the night that Christ was with his friends with this meal, and he looked around at these men who were going to make a lot of mistakes, that probably were going to experience fear and question and doubt and all of that. There was this invitation to them, this reminder to them that he was going to be with them. Again, they didn't fully understand everything that was going to happen, but this was Jesus trying to say, you know what? Things are going to be hard that are ahead for you. And you may have to stand in a fiery furnace. I'm going to ask you to be bold and courageous. And what's really great is knowing that at times they were and sometimes they weren't, and yet God still believed in what they could do. I'm thankful that we can relate to those kinds of men, because there's some times where I do not live up to what I know that I'm called to do. But I'm thankful for the forgiveness and grace that is poured out in this meal. So he took bread and he gave thanks to God and he broke it and he said, "Take, eat, this is my body which is given for you." And not just the men there, but every single person in the world. He was saying, my body is given for you. I love you enough. I'm still going to sacrifice for you because I love you. After the dinner, he took the cup. He gave thanks to God. He said, "Drink from this. This is a cup of the new covenant. Every time you do this, remember that my life was poured out for you and that you should live your life pouring out for others as well." I don't know what all of you are dealing with right now, but I hope that as you approach this table in a little bit, that you are reminded that God is with you. And that if you're needing courage or comfort or strength or guidance, that maybe you will feel that you're inching a little bit closer to having that. Let's pray. God, I thank you so much for the way that your Spirit is among us right now. And that your Spirit is coming upon these gifts, that they would be whatever we are seeking. We know that it's not this magical thing, but rather it's something that will empower us to go out into the world and do the things that we are called to do, that we are called to be a light, that we are called of works of justice, that we are called to a life of forgiveness, that all of that would help us become more like your Son. We're so grateful that you go with us, that you never leave us, and that you dwell among us. And together, let's pray the prayer that your Son taught us, praying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. At this time, I'm going to ask those that are going to help serve communion to come forward. Just know that this table is open to everyone. But if you don't feel comfortable coming forward, that is fine with us too. In a moment, you will be invited to come up front. If you just want to extend your hands forward, someone will give you a piece of bread, and then you'll dip your bread in the juice and take the elements together. If you need gluten-free, you can come to the center station. We're going to invite people to come forward, and then everyone's going to go out this door and come back into your seats. That just helps with the traffic flow. Again, all are welcome, and we're so grateful that you are here today to share in this meal together. Table is ready.
Grand earth is quite before, moved by the sound of your voice, and the seas that are shaken and stirred can be calmed and broken for my regard. And through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. And through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well with me.
Far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And this mountain that's in front of me will be thrown into the midst of the sea. Through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well. It is well.
So let go, ask all
Friends, it has been an honor worshiping with you this morning, and now we turn to a time of offering, and I'd like to thank you for your ongoing generosity that always happens just all the time in this church, and we're so grateful for it. And if you'd like to give today, I remind you, you can scan the QR code on the back of your bulletin, or you can text FUMC Denton at 73256. And today, you'll hear just in a minute a little bit more, our offerings collected, our cash that's collected in the baskets will be going to a nonprofit organization called Kids Against Hunger, and we'll be doing some more with that this afternoon. And they provide food for children and families and food insecure all throughout the United States and up into Canada. And so we thank you for giving to that as well. Also, I want to thank you for sending in your notes on your connection cards, your prayer requests, and your care notes to us, the hospitalization forms that you send to us as well. We do pray for you, and we do want to know what you're going through and be there with you and walk with you and come to see you if you need that. And so continue to send those to us because they're very important to us. And I hope that you are finding ways to plug into the church outside of Sunday morning worship services. There are so many groups and places for you to be a part of. And if you haven't quite found the one that you just want to jump into, stay tuned because we've got some more that are going to be rolling out here in the fall. And in the next few weeks, you'll be hearing more about that. And so I know there'll be something for each of you to jump into and be a part of. So I'm glad to be with y'all this morning. Oh, and now I'm going to turn it over to Crystal and Lizzie for announcements. I forgot. Sorry.
Just want to share a few things with you going on in the life of the church. So throughout July, we're collecting school supplies that teachers at Rivera Elementary School have requested for their coming school year. And if you would like to donate school supplies, you can find a list of what's needed online at fumcdenton.com/community or /events. And we appreciate you giving to that. Also, this afternoon at 4 o'clock, we are meeting in Monroe Gym for the food packing event with Kids Against Hunger. This is an event that's open to everyone of all ages and all skill levels to come and to join us and help us pack these meals. We're aiming to do 15,000 this year, and we need lots and lots of helpers. So please come today at 4 o'clock. You don't need to register or anything. You just need to show up, and yeah, that's today. And then also, we want you to save the date for August 1st. Texas Impact is going to be here to lead us through an event called Ready, Set, Go that's going to help us prepare for the 2026 midterm elections. And so there's going to be a lot of really good information available at this event, and we really hope you'll join us that day. This is hosted by our Church and Society Committee, who do great work. If you have questions about who they are or what they do, I believe they have a table set up in Miller Center today and next Sunday if you want to stop by and talk to them about this. But we hope that you'll join us. And with that, I want to invite y'all to stand as you're comfortable, and we'll sing our last song together.
Because I've seen the faithfulness of God, the still inside the storm, the promise of the shore. And I trust the power of your word, enough to seek your kingdom first, beyond the barren place, beyond the ocean waves. When I walk through the waters, I won't be overcome. When I go through the rivers, I will not be drowned. My God will make a way, so I am not afraid. You keep the promises you make. There isn't one that is delayed, so I will not lose heart. Here I will lift my arms and start to sing into the night. My praise will call the sun to rise, declare that we are one, declare that it is
you, worship team. So as you go forth from this place, I'm reminded that these three guys in the fiery furnace were able to link arms with one another. And so I pray that as a community that we would link arms together and head straight into that fiery heat, knowing that we are not alone and that we were called to hard things. So may you go in peace and face the heat all together. Amen.